the waiting room and let folks in. Wonderful. Good morning. Welcome to the Seattle King County Coalition on Homelessness's April membership meeting. My name is Jody Rao. I use she, her pronouns. I am our outgoing Senior Programs Manager. We have almost the entire team here with us today. We've got Allison Eisinger, our Executive Director, our incoming Senior Programs Manager, Kevin Lee, Allie Willis, our Community Policy Manager, Daniel Palmer-Friedman, our Communications Lead, and then on a very important business call is Noah Guder, our Operations and Systems Manager. We are really happy to have you here with us today, particularly after yesterday's Zoom disaster. The Coalition is a member-based organization, and this meeting is really meant to bring people together. Providers, community and government partners, allies alike. We come together every month in the spirit of building community, exchanging important and timely information, offering professional development skills and resources, and last but not least, really creating a sense of solidarity amongst ourselves. So we're really glad you're here with us. We have this really beautiful slide that goes into a little bit more detail about what we do and who we are, and I encourage you to take a look at that. We are recording this meeting. It will live in our YouTube and space forever. So if I could have somebody drop our YouTube channel into the link, we record all our meetings, all our trainings. There's a wealth of information there for folks. We encourage you to subscribe to that channel. We love to see faces. So if you're in a place where you're able to put your cameras on and that feels appropriate today, we love to see faces. You have the ability to change your name in your little Zoom box. So we like to know who you are, what your pronouns are, how you might be connected to the coalition or this work. If you are with the media today, we really just ask that you quote and pull information from either coalition staff or our official presenters. And if there's someone else that you are hoping to connect with, please reach out to contact@homelessinfo.org and we will connect you with the right person at that agency for follow-up. And then if someone else could throw in our email sign-up list. Presumably you have it because you're here, but we also know that Zoom links get shared with folks and we want people to have direct access, or you can just share with the rest of your colleagues and communities. On that note, if we can move to the agenda slide, please. So I am really thrilled. We've got a wonderful agenda for folks today. We have the Sexual Violence Law Center here to really talk about the holistic resources and services that they offer folks. We're going to have some representatives from the Benefits Law Center here today to talk about the very new and unsettling changes to SSI overpayment practices that the current administration just recently put through. We're in the final weeks and push for the state legislative session, so we're going to have advocacy and updates. And as always, we are going to be sharing really good and important information with you based on the coalition's work. And then we always invite you to share what you have going on in your worlds with us and everyone else here. So on that note, I'm going to invite our newest colleague and staff member, Kevin Lee, to read our mission, vision, and values. So I will hand it off to them.
I have to take myself off mute. Hello, everyone. Yes, our mission, we mobilize our community to challenge systemic causes of homelessness and advocate for housing justice. Our vision is a region that acts on a shared sense of responsibility to ensure that everyone has a home. And our values are equity, justice, and collective action.
Thank you, Kevin. This is a long-standing tradition of the coalition to read our mission, vision, and values because this is not just words on a piece of paper. This is the work that we do and we put into action every single day. On that note, I'm going to hand it off to Allison Eisinger.
Thank you, Jody, and thank you, Kevin and DJ Danielle, and thanks to all of you who've joined us already this morning. I'm Allison Eisinger. I use she, her pronouns, and I have the privilege of serving as the director of the Coalition on Homelessness. And I have a bittersweet task this morning. I'm going to remind folks that we've benefited for almost 4 years from having the lovely and talented Jody Rao as a core member of our staff here at the Coalition. And Jody is going to be taking a year to do other things with life. And we are wildly happy for her to be able to do that. Profoundly grateful for the passion, intelligence, community connections, and joy that she has brought to us, her colleagues, to the Coalition as an organization, and to this community. Jody was known to a lot of folks in our community as the point person as soon as the COVID-19 pandemic hit, in her role at the Healthcare for the Homeless Network at Public Health, and convened meetings with hundreds of extremely panic-stricken and information-seeking people, and managed to maintain an extraordinary balance of calm, good information, reasonableness, and heart, even as she and her colleagues did uncharted work in the field. And I would say that's how I got to know Jody. It's not how we met, but it's how I got to know Jody. And at a certain point, it made sense for Jody to step away from working at the government level and to step into working with the Coalition. And one of the things that Jody and I talked about is that she was really ready to be able to do advocacy work, but she wasn't entirely sure that she was an advocate in that way. And I think it's fair to say that Jody discovered that she sure as hell is, and has just brought so much to this role. Hallie is, I think, going to share a little link. We're respecting Jody's wishes to not throw a big party, even though we'd really love to do that. And maybe sometime in the future, we'll just, have a big party and Jody will be there. But for now, we're just going to invite you all to use the link that Hallie put in the chat and drop a note for Jody. You can share that with your colleagues and friends. We want Jody to have a little bit of a send off, and we're going to take your messages and we're going to do something secret and special and creative with them. And there's so much more I could say, but I am going to just leave it there and express, great, deep, profound appreciation, Jody, to you as an extraordinary member of this 46-year-old coalition's history. You have helped us build the infrastructure that allows us to do the work that we do in partnership with the whole community. And to welcome Kevin Lee, who has joined us. It's now maybe full week two for Kevin of joining us. And so we're really delighted to have Kevin with us and to have the opportunity for overlap with Jody and Kevin as we get to know each other, and as Kevin starts to absorb all kinds of people, names, information, processes. I know you will welcome Kevin warmly. They are ready to go, and Kevin comes to us most recently from working with our partner organization at the state level, WSCDIV, the Washington State Coalition Against Domestic Violence. Also has a wide range of other experience, and I want to just give them a few minutes to introduce themselves to you. And I know that you'll all not only welcome Kevin, but help them find their way to do their own wonderful version of our community programs work in partnership with all of you. And then I'll talk a little bit about the, maybe I'll just talk a little bit about the election after you introduce yourself, Kevin.
Sure, sounds good. Yes, thank you for that. And also, of course, thank you to Jody. I got a chance to meet and work with Jody in my previous role with the Washington State Coalition Against Domestic Violence, and has been this ambassador for the coalition on homelessness. And yes, please click that link and share your thoughts with Jody. So yes, Kevin Lee, I use they, them pronouns, but he and him is fine too. I am very excited to be here and to be welcomed into this space with you all. I come to this role with many, many years of direct service and crisis support as a DV advocate and legal advocate, as well as some time working in public benefit systems as a TANF workforce social worker, and that all before moving on to coalition work with the Washington State Coalition Against Domestic Violence. So very excited to be part of this mission and in coalition with everyone here.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It's really a gift to have this kind of overlap. So we're happy to be sitting in this space right now together. And then I will just briefly, because I want to pass things on to our wonderful guests from the Sexual Violence Law Center, just remind folks that part of the nature of this coalition is we are actually a coalition. Not only do we come together in this forum once a month, we have the South King County Forum on Homelessness once a month, we have senior leadership meetings twice a month, and we do things like host a hands-off HUD rally at the federal building. Darcel was there. Thank you so much to Darcel and others who joined us there. We are probably going to do that again pretty darn soon. So, you know, for those of you who may not have experienced direct action of various types in your advocacy lives, we're going to be helping you flex those muscles. And we also have a board of directors, and each year at our May annual membership meeting, our members, which is the member organizations, vote on a slate of candidates for board service. We have a wonderful problem, which is that we had 11 terrific people put their hats into the mix. So the board and I are going through a process of having conversations with people, and we'll be bringing that slate of candidates to all of you. Hopefully some of them can join in person for our May membership meeting. And somebody is going to, oh, thank you, Hallie, for putting that link in there. And that is also an opportunity for us collectively to reflect on what we've done in the past year, as well as the legislative session will have ended. So that meeting is going to be a 2-hour meeting to fit in everything we need to fit in. And it is going to include a legislative session recap. We're going to have lawmakers join us and the candidates for board service. And we're probably going to have some special guests and I think maybe some music. So please mark your calendars for Thursday, May 15th, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And we really hope to see you there, if not before. Thank you to everybody, and welcome to our wonderful colleagues and advocates at the Sexual Violence Law Center. I will turn things over back to the meeting hosts.
I'm happy to do a quick introduction for SVLC before we get started. As you may or may not know, the Sexual Violence Law Center is a nonprofit law firm that seeks to improve the legal response to survivors of sexual violence. SVLC is the only legal aid program of its kind in Washington, providing holistic assistance and representation exclusively to victims of sexual violence, assault, abuse, harassment, and stalking. I can say as a former DV-SA advocate and legal advocate, I made a number of referrals to the SVLC, and I can't say enough about the amazing support the survivors I worked with received from them. We know that a majority of survivors of SA do not seek legal recourse, protection, or justice, and that decision is oftentimes not a choice. And the SVLC is really at the forefront of removing those barriers that you all know as service providers can leave people vulnerable to compounding systemic oppression. And so with that, we are very happy to have them with us today.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for that introduction, Kevin. My name is Alexander Bejeran Esteves. I'm one of the staff attorneys for the Sexual Violence Law Center, and I'm joined by my colleague who is also here, Lucy Erickson.
Yes, good morning. I'm Lucy Erickson. I am a staff attorney at SVLC, and I would love to know if everyone can see my screen. Okay, fantastic. All right, so Alex, I guess I'll turn it over to you, and
Yes.
we'll start there.
Yes, I think with the wonderful introduction we got from Kevin, we can skip the first two slides. We can skip this one on the next slide, because Kevin covered what I was gonna talk about
That were amazing.
very, very well. And we can go to the next slide, Lucy. Thank you. So a little bit about the Sexual Violence Law Center's values. We are a trauma-informed organization that provides holistic legal services. We are survivor-centered, and our work is rooted in anti-oppression and race and gender equity. And so what do all of these things mean? And I'm going to go sort of one by one to explain a little bit about our values and how they intertwine with our work model. And the first one is that we are trauma-informed. In other words, we seek through our services to not re-traumatize the clients we serve with. We work with our clients in a way that is tactful and understanding about how their experiences and different vulnerabilities interact with their interactions with the legal system, and how interactions with the legal system can further re-traumatize individuals just by the very virtue of the adversarial nature of our legal system. So we try to prepare our clients and present our clients' cases and experiences in a way that is understanding of their background, in a way that does not re-traumatize them, and also that preserves their dignity as individuals. We offer holistic services. This means that we attempt as best as we can to address all of the legal issues that arose from the acts of violence that led our clients to come to us. We try to, whenever possible and whenever it is appropriate, to not only assist our clients with the specific legal need that is in front of them. And I'll give an example. So for example, if someone was victim of violence, and because of that, they are unable to continue working due to the stress and trauma of the events that they experience, that also will inevitably affect their living situation. And through our holistic legal services, we not only address head-on the crime that they were a victim of, whether that is through assistance to the criminal side or on the civil side, but also help them break their lease whenever is necessary, interface with their employer if there's any work-related issues that need to be addressed on the legal side. Generally speaking, as an organization, we try to say no to people as little as possible, and we try to address the issues to make sure that the lives of the individuals we serve are better after they came to us than they were before. We are survivor-centered, and what this means generally is that we put our clients first. We listen to what our clients want and what their goals are from representation, and we try to make sure that their wishes and desires come through in the representation as much as possible. That also means that we work directly with survivors and not with the individuals that are supporting survivors, such as advocates or parents and that type of thing. So we try whenever possible to work directly with the person who is closest to the harm. And then we are rooted in anti-oppression and race and gender equity. What this means is that we have an entire gender equity analysis to the individuals we represent, and we try to prioritize those folks who have been systemically harmed the most in providing our services. And next slide whenever you can, Lucy. Thank you. And so as to who we serve victims and survivors of sexual violence. We serve people of all ages and genders, people who self-identify as survivors. The Sexual Violence Law Center does not have an income requirement, so it doesn't matter how much the people that we are referred to or the people we are appointed by the court, how much they make. Income is not a barrier for services, and I feel this is a good place to also say that our services are pro bono, so we don't charge for representation. And we define survivors of sexual violence very broadly to include sexual assault, sexual harassment, molestation, grooming, stalking, and cyber stalking with a sexual component, as well as sex trafficking.
Sorry, there's a lag, Alex. So here we
That's
go.
okay. No worries. I assumed that was the case. So in terms of our priorities, and this goes back into our anti-oppression, race and gender equity considerations, which is that we prioritize the individuals who face the most barriers to accessing justice. Like our program, especially our civil protection order practice specifically, is tailored in a way that it is meant to erase as many barriers to access to justice as possible. So for example, we prioritize folks who are indigent or housing insecure. We prioritize representing people who are suffering from mental illness. We prioritize representing folks who are members of a protected class. So we could take into consideration race, gender, sex, age, disability, national origin, religion, and whether or not the individual is pregnant. We prioritize serving LGBTQ folks. And we also prioritize other access to folks who have other barriers to access the legal system, such as age or individuals who have multiple legal issues or who lack the support of their parents. And very importantly, when you're dealing with going to court, we also prioritize serving individuals whom the respondent or the other side has an attorney. And then some of the areas of law that we practice are civil protection orders, which are essentially civil no contact orders. We represent folks in criminal privacy matters, and this is essentially when a person is the named victim in a criminal case, we step in to ensure that their statutorily protected documents are not accessed by the defense, or to make sure that they are accessed in a way that is consistent with Washington state law. We also serve individuals on immigration cases, in employment issues, in education issues, on housing issues. And I think this is a very important place to make a caveat, which is that I don't believe that we go to housing court with folks, but we do advise them on other housing related issues. So to my knowledge, we don't do eviction defense. We just help folks with other issues that are related to housing, and then we connect folks to people who are doing housing defense. And then we also address other issues related to a survivor's safety or stability.
So Alex talked about holistic legal services. And I guess it's important for you to know what those services are. They're holistic, but what are the services? So the way SVLC, in terms of legal services, because we have, our advocacy work, in terms of our legal services, there's kind of three main categories of them by level of representation. And so the first thing that I'd like to go over is our legal line. So our legal line, it is not an emergency hotline, but it is a hotline. And the way that procedurally it works is a survivor will either email our legal line email address, our intake email address, legalline@svlawcenter.org, or call our phone number and leave a message. So it's not necessarily that someone's going to pick up right away, but we process the message or the email, and then we aim for within 2 weeks. Sometimes it takes up to 30 days. But we will call back that caller, that survivor. We're able to, at the very least, chat with them, answer questions, provide them with resources if they are representing themselves. It is not meant to be a consultation for representation. Sometimes that can also be a little bit of confusion, but the calls are confidential. So an attorney is calling back. That means the rules of confidentiality apply, subject to a couple of exceptions. Legal line, we also can answer questions and work with survivors of other types of gender-based violence. So obviously we are the Sexual Violence Law Center, and generally that is, the type of work that we are funded, and we prioritize on our legal line. Other types of gender-based violence, we can certainly assist survivors who have questions and are navigating that. Something that comes up a lot with legal line, and it's understandable, right, is someone calling on behalf of a survivor. So a parent, a friend, and we still, as Alex explained, like our mission is to work directly with survivors. They were in a position where their control over their lives and their body and their consent was taken away. And so we try not to have conversations about them without their input. That's just not something that we believe is very trauma informed. So understandably, someone wants to help out their friend, their child, they will call Legal Line, and we'll just let them know that, we would obviously please pass on our information to the survivor, and we would be more than happy to chat with them. Not all callers know what their legal needs are. So very frequently, a survivor something will have just happened, right? They get a bunch of pamphlets from the police, or they get sent to file a protection order. And they call thinking, they need one thing, and actually we talk through it, and actually, we identify other legal needs. So that's another really great thing about Legal Line, is that in those emergent circumstances, like I said, it's not an emergency hotline, but in circumstances where something has just happened, being able to talk to someone that can actually explain what's going on, explain the law, explain the different areas where they might need assistance, or sometimes it's as simple as like, this is what the criminal process is, this is what the civil process is. So Legal Line, again, free and confidential. Again, for survivors, we also have technical assistance. I think we have a slide on that. Okay, so I won't talk about technical assistance, but it's a really good tool for us to be able to assist survivors in the state without, if we don't have capacity to do full representation, we at least are able to provide some level of service and provide information for survivors. Legal Line brief services. So this is kind of a middle ground between full representation and our Legal Line. Especially when it comes to civil protection orders, although there are some areas of our criminal law, when a victim does have, standing to object to something, we can do this as well, but reviewing documents. So, if a caller has not yet written a petition, we can, if we have capacity, just take a look, review it, make sure it's, filled out correctly, maybe hitting some of the legal standards, that were discussed over Legal Line, editing or drafting, providing templates. So a lot of times we can just provide a template to a survivor if it's a pretty common issue, like a subpoena for their medical records. We can provide a template for them so that they're able to go to court and file it. And also, yeah, preparing for court so they can represent themselves. Technical assistance, it is not assistance with tech, which it took me like maybe a couple weeks when I started at SPLC. It is not assistance with tech. Clearly I might need it. No, this is for providers who are supporting a survivor. So for example, an advocate, an attorney who doesn't practice this area of law, but might have taken something pro bono, or maybe a family law attorney when there's, you know, a sexual assault or abuse going on in the family, reaching out to us if, you know, they only provide family law assistance, but there's some sort of protection order. So it's not meant to provide direct assistance to the survivor, but working with someone who provides assistance to survivors, and just needs to check in with us about something, ask a question. They can do that again by reaching out to Legal Line, but our staff will identify, you know, that, you know, this isn't necessarily survivor support. This is a tech assistance question, and kind of direct them accordingly. Same thing though, like we can provide templates, we can discuss legal authority, and then full representation. So the first 3 things that I discussed, technical assistance, brief services, Legal Line, there's no attorney-client relationship that's established. We're very clear about that. Because it's, yeah, obviously it's not trauma informed. If someone thinks that they have an ongoing relationship with an attorney, full representation, the difference is that they have signed a client engagement agreement with us, establishing that attorney-client relationship. Like Alex said, it might start out with one issue. So maybe, you know, we have engaged representation for a sexual assault protection order case. During that representation, criminal charges are filed. And then all of a sudden that becomes a new legal issue because the survivor, you know, might need support protecting their privacy or asserting their rights to notice as a victim witness in that case. So full representation, it might start with one thing, but obviously as maybe some legal needs or some new legal issues arise, that can always be amended, subject to capacity as well. One attorney is responsible for the matter. So on Legal Line, it might be that, you know, one rotating attorney has spoken to the survivor. Maybe when they call back, it's another attorney that's on that rotation, but full representation, it's, you know, it's one attorney. And trial and appellate, our representation will have a certain scope. So again, for a protection order, it's until there's a final decision in that protection order case in Superior Court. Appellate cases, you know, that's upon review. We can't guarantee that, you know, our team will be able to take an appellate case on, but we also write amicus briefs. And yeah, there's certain categories of representation. It's really case by case, but full representation until there's a final outcome in whatever, in the district court case, in the Superior Court case. Okay. All right, we're just gonna move on. Okay, referrals. Alex, do you wanna? I'm gonna hand this off to you.
Yes, absolutely. So to handle our referrals, there are essentially like 2 different people who can reach out to us for assistance. The first one is perfect. Let's stick on that side. Thank you, Lucy. The first one is survivors themselves who quote unquote self-refer to us through our Legal Line process. This goes back to what Lucy was just talking about how folks can reach out to us either over email or calling us directly through through Legal Line, and as Lucy said, it can take up to 30 days for a response. The second way that folks can be referred to us is through providers, so through the help of the amazing people on this call, where they are working with clients who you guys identify that might benefit from our legal services. So long as you do not work for an organization that is subject to the Public Disclosure Act, you can fill out a referral form and email it directly through to our Legal Line. Our organization staffs cases every Wednesday based on applicable areas of law and the application of our equity principles and staff capacity. If you work for a government or an agency that is subject to the Public Disclosure Act, our request is that you email Legal Line and let us know that you would like to do a referral over the phone, and one of our paralegals will get in touch with you to complete that referral. And then after we have staffed the cases with our attorneys, the attorneys will contact the survivor directly by the next business day after staffing, and this conversation is confidential.
And I will say with referrals, we will, like, even if we can't staff it, we'll be sure to at least assign it to like the Legal Line level. So there's not going to be a situation in which you send us a referral and, you know, the survivor never hears back from us. At, you know, at whatever level, they will be getting a call from SVLC. And self-referrals also say if there's like a deadline, again, we can't like guarantee right away, but we always ask survivors to put in a deadline. So if there's like a next court date, something like that, so that we can kind of prioritize it up in the queue. That's always really helpful for us to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And then to get in touch with us, I know Jody already put this information in the chat, but I'll read it out loud anyway. To get in touch with us, you can call our free legal line at 844-991-7852 or at 206-312-7852. And you can also email us at legalline@svlawcenter.org. And you can visit our website, which is www.svlawcenter.org. And then, do folks have any questions?
Yeah, well, so one definitely came in through the chat. So first off, thank you both so much. This is just such an incredible resource that y'all offer, and really such a lovely presentation packed with information. And I'm just going to note, like, I believe it's okay for us to share the slides out for folks. And so we sort of skipped over the advocacy work that this organization does, but we will share that out in the slides. So Allison just put into the chat, thanks for noting that the Legal Line could be useful for staff who are helping to support survivors. How do you navigate things like working with a case manager or advocate to help someone prepare for court? And do you require a release of information?
Do you want to take this one, Lucy, or I can also answer it?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess I just want to restate the question to make sure I'm understanding. So the question is, logistically, or how would we support a provider for an appearance in court? Like if the survivor is appearing in court and that provider is helping them, or if the provider is going to court?
Maybe I can just broaden it and clarify a little bit, Lucy. Thank you. I'm just thinking in terms of a wide range of possible instances in which people on this call, many of them volunteers or paid staff at a variety of service sites, may be trying to support a person.
Mm-hmm.
And how much do they need to provide to you or your colleagues documentation to indicate that they are in a supportive role to a survivor?
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I mean, I think right out the referral form is enough. I don't think we require any additional documentation. What's very helpful to us is any documentation related to the matter, and this is like a case-by-case basis, but for example, if it's assisting someone who is a petitioner in a protection order case, sometimes people just, they're not able to save their documents, right? Not everyone has reliable access to technology in their case file. So if the advocate has those documents, you know, we always ask that the advocate send documents directly to us so that we're not maybe going to the survivor and be like, why don't you have this document and give me this document? You know, if it's full representation, then obviously we do have access to the docket and we can grab them. But just, yeah, initially, although we don't need a lot of documentation about that provider, aside from the referral form, it's always helpful if there are documents that they could send over, like in a criminal matter statement, a probable cause, or the information that's filed is pretty helpful to us as well. Or if there was any subpoena, that's very helpful. That's probably the most helpful. If there's a notice of intent to subpoena or a subpoena, we definitely like to have that before contacting the survivor.
Yeah, and going and to add to that, I think in terms of like ROI or any other type of releases, it really depends on in the context of which the community partner is providing services to the individual. Because for example, if we're talking about a legal advocate, right, that's helping the survivor navigate the legal system before they got representation, that individual may not need an ROI because they have already been involved in the entire process, right? But if we're talking about someone who, let's say, has been providing mental health services to a survivor and they also have legal requirements as to how they are to maintain their records, then we would likely need a release of information for us to be able to talk, because both sides are working with privileged documents, and, you know, we would need the survivor's explicit permission to be able to talk to each other. So I think it is really like context dependent, and like what the work that has been done is up to that point.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much. This is really, really helpful. You are welcome to stay and continue to participate in our meeting. If you need to move on with your days, then we thank you for your time and all this really great information. And if folks are having other questions or thoughts, just throw them into the chat and we can follow up with Alex and Lucy. But thank you so much for being here and sharing the resources that y'all do. I appreciate your time. I am going to move us on to our next section. So we are really lucky to have more attorneys joining us today from Benefits Law Center. So Benefits Law Center provides legal advice and representation to low-income individuals with disabilities in matters related to entitlement to Social Security, disability, and SSI benefits. So we have Hillary Lovell, she's the directing attorney for the Disabled Homeless Advocacy Program, and Maya Mann is here as a staff attorney. And there have been some really important, as I said at the top of the meeting, changes to overpayments, and we wanted to invite them in to briefly share with you all what those changes are. And no doubt we might be inviting these folks back to have a deeper dive into this. So on that note, Hillary, I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you, Jody. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us. As you probably are aware, Social Security is changing daily and sometimes hourly. So the updates are coming very frequently. And I think there's a lot of misinformation going on in the news stories. And Maya Manis is with me. She's one of our fabulous staff attorneys who does a lot of overpayment work. And so Maya's going to be monitoring the chat. So as I go along, if you have questions, please put those in the chat. Maya will monitor and respond. And then after I go over a brief summary of what's going on in the overpayment world, maybe Maya can share a little bit of her experience and what it is like currently working on these cases in a day-to-day, how, if all, it has changed. So I want to give you a brief overview of the differences in the programs, because that is going to affect the changes that are being talked about. There are different programs that Social Security administers for people who have disabilities. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about general responses to overpayments, and then we can talk about what the most recent change is. That way you have a bit of a background. So the two main programs that we're dealing with in the disability world are SSI, Supplemental Security Income. That is a needs-based program. It has income and resource limits. There are financial requirements to access that program. The other disability program is Social Security Disability Insurance, SSDI. Oftentimes it's referred to just as Social Security, and that's why it can get confusing when it's referred to in the news. SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance, is a program that is also housed with retirement and survivors benefits. And so those programs get lumped together. It's in one fund of money. SSI is a completely separate program. It has a different payment. It comes from a different fund of money, essentially. And it has those additional requirements for income and resource. It has financial eligibility requirements. So keep that in mind as we go along. What does it mean to have an overpayment? That is when Social Security tells you that they'll send a notice that says, we think we paid you too many benefits. We paid you too much. Often it comes because, you know, as you're going through your programs, you're getting monthly payments and things change in our lives. So maybe you had other income and you needed to report it. Remember, for SSI, there's income and resource limits. So as you have income, that's going to affect your monthly payment. SSDI does not have income and resource limits. However, if you do start to work, there is a trial work period. So without getting into those details, just know that there are various things that's going to affect how much Social Security believes they're going to pay you every month. Maybe you had an inheritance, or you had a settlement from a personal injury. There's a lot of reasons why your benefit might have needed to be lower. We also see it on pure regular income for folks that have income. For example, I have a lot of clients that may have tribal income, which is not the same every month. Maybe they get it twice a year, and it is based off of their dividends. So sometimes Social Security estimates their income. So there's a variety of reasons why Social Security might say that they have paid you too much. And it's coming after the fact. So usually it's because they're getting information and you may have reported it timely, but they're slow going through their paperwork. So not for your own fault. So then what do you do if you get an overpayment notice? First of all, an overpayment notice, it will say at the very top of the notice what program it is. So pay attention to all of your notices you get from Social Security. At the very top in bold, it will say Social Security Administration, and right below that, it will say which program, Supplemental Security Income, or it will say Retirement, Survivors, and Disability Insurance. That will tell you which benefit your client might be receiving. Then it will tell you, it will say notice of overpayment at the top. If you get one of those as a beneficiary, you have options. Generally, those are, you can appeal, you can file what's called a request for reconsideration saying, I think this is incorrect. That has a time limit. That is, you have a deadline, 60 days plus 5 days for mailing, just like any other appeal process within the Social Security system. You can appeal late with good cause. And the benefit of doing that, one, is that if you file that timely, they will not withhold anything from your payment while they're figuring that out, whether they did or did not calculate that correctly. The other thing is when they make the decision on that either way, it will give you oftentimes more information than the overpayment notice itself has. So maybe you'll figure out, oh, that's why you think I was overpaid. Then you can move on and maybe follow one of the other options. Another main option is you can file a request for waiver. You can do that at any time. Essentially, there's two prongs to that. That's it was not my fault, and it would create a hardship for me, essentially. If you have an overpayment that's $2,000 or less, that's considered an administrative overpayment. They don't have to do the research and financial eligibility. They just basically say that's below the amount it's worth us to even review this, so they can rubber stamp it and approve that waiver as long as you're not at fault. And then there's always the option for a payment plan. This is where the automatic recovery kind of comes into play. They will, if you get past your timeline, if you don't respond, eventually Social Security is going to say, well, okay, well, here's the overpayment. This is how much you owe us. And they're going to start to withhold from your monthly payment to recover that overpayment. And they will do that automatically, but you can set up a payment plan to a lower amount. So I'm going to come back to that in a second. The last thing you can do, if there's no withholding, just to say that if you have filed your appeal or you filed a waiver, there's not going to be any withholding while they make those decisions. Once they make those decisions, then they can start withholding, and you can keep appealing and all of that. But just know that once you file those, they should stop withholding. If you filed it late with good cause, or if they've started to withhold, it does. Even if you file those later, let's say you file a waiver, you can ask them to stop withholding, and it might take them time to stop doing it. So that's why it's important to try to do it before they start withholding. But what does withholding mean? So there's a maximum recovery rate. This is where we're getting to what is this new recent change. The good news is SSI has not changed. SSI recovery rate is set by regulation. I think this is where the misconception in the media is right now. How it's reported is a little bit confusing. Luckily, the SSI recovery rate is capped at 10% by regulation. The regulations have not changed. So covering more than 10% for over.
Hillary, we've sort of lost your audio.
Okay.
Better.
Can you hear me now? I had an incoming call on my work phone app, and it just always does that. Sorry. So what I was saying is that the maximum recovery rate for SSI has not changed. It is capped at 10% by regulation. The only way to get around that is for them to do new regulations, and that has a whole other process. So that is the good news. The unfortunate thing is what they did, the most recent change, is they are reversing a policy that they just implemented last year that everybody in the Social Security world was really excited about, at least as far as advocates. Last year, our former Commissioner O'Malley was trying to make some changes to the programs that seemed to be going in the direction of helping claimants, making things a little bit more efficient. And it seems like a lot of those things are being undone. The one that is in the news, what we're here to talk about, is that they most recently, and it's really almost a year to the date from when they changed it in March of this year, March of last year, they said the rule has always been SSDI recovery rate was max 100%. So they could take your entire SSDI paycheck to recover an overpayment. And that was the case until last year when they updated the policy. This was just a policy on how they implement the regulations. And the disability insurance regulation did not say there was a 10% cap. So Social Security said, well, we're going to recover 100%. Last year, the administration acknowledged that that's not fair to take somebody's entire paycheck, because most people who are on any form of Social Security, including retirement, SSDI, that for the majority of people receiving those paychecks, that's the majority of their income, if not all. So what you're saying is, to recover 100%, you have nothing to live on. And they acknowledged that was not fair. That they changed it to be 10%, just like SSI. They also extended the time frame to repay, where Social Security would accept the payment plan if it was repaid within this certain time frame. When you do a payment plan, which you can still do, you can file it even if it's not going to be repaid within a certain period of time. But generally, they have a policy that says it will be accepted if it's repaid within X period of time. The old policy was 36 months. Last year, when they changed the 10% recovery for DI, they increased it to 60 months. So if your overpayment can be repaid within 5 years, if you create a payment plan that says, I'll repay it at this dollar amount, they will accept it. They will accept no lower than $10 per month. So the lowest you can go is $10 per month. And you're asking them, when you fill out the repayment plan, there's all this information about, what your expenses are and how much you have left over to pay and all of that. And you can extend it more, but the good news is at least the 60-month repayment period has not changed. So the changes are, unfortunately, they reversed the policy on the 100% withholding down to 10%. Now it's back to 100% for disability insurance beneficiaries, or retirement, survivors, disability insurance beneficiaries. If you are on that program and you have an overpayment, you can still appeal. You can still file a waiver. That will stop recovery. You can still do a payment plan. But if you do not respond, they will automatically withhold up to 100%. And then it's going to be up to you to ask for a payment plan for a lower payment amount. Jody, you have a question?
Mostly just doing a time check and just wanted to, we've got just a couple minutes and I know you wanted to give Maya some time as well, just to share some,
Yes.
reality about that. So mostly time check. Thank
Okay. Yeah. And that was really the end of my spiel. Look at your notices, make sure your clients keep them because that's going to be the most important way to figure out what's going on. So Maya, would you like to answer anything that was in the chat or talk about what this practically is affecting in overpayment cases?
Yes, there weren't any questions in the chat, so if you have any, please feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat. The main thing is there is always the opportunity to do the request for waiver once somebody does have an overpayment. Like Hillary said, there does need to be a no fault analysis. So, they should have known or knew that they should not have accepted a Social Security payment due to, working over SGA or substantial gainful activity. That's usually the reason why someone may get an overpayment, or working above the allotted amount for supplemental security income. And so you can file a request for waiver, but you do have to meet that fault analysis. But there are also other pertinent circumstances that may apply. So if there's a language barrier, if there's a mental health crisis that someone is going through and they didn't report wages, those can be sort of caveats or ways in which we can still ask for a request for a waiver. But right now, what I have seen, filing a request for waiver, it can stop them collecting for the overpayment, but it does take time, like everything else, applying for benefits or whatnot, for them to review the request for a waiver and make a decision. And so it can be really great to just, file that and have it where they're not collecting on your Social Security, but it could be later down the line, they find that your waiver was denied, and then you have to set up a payment plan. And so that's sort of what we're seeing right now in terms of when people have overpayments, is especially for the Social Security disability insurance folks who are going to have 100% collected now. It's sort of, are we going to file a waiver, or are we going to work on a payment plan? But it's going to be a process with either avenue, because getting a hold of Social Security is very difficult. So I think right now the best thing we can say is patience is a virtue, and it's going to take time. And because calling Social Security, going to Social Security, replying to the notices, whatever avenue you take, is going to take some time for them to respond. I saw that somebody had a hand. I don't know if you'd like to go off mute and ask your question real quick.
This is Darcel. I actually did have a question, but you kind of addressed it with the mental health as a condition that might be considered. I shouldn't say condition, but something that was really my question. We're representative payees for some folks, and they'll go get their own bank accounts and not tell us, so we don't know that. So then they get a big overpayment, and they didn't know they were doing anything wrong, and they didn't report it to us, and now they're in one of these tough situations. So I was just curious, how liberal are they about considering different things impacting someone's ability to maybe understand all the different rules?
Yes, this is where it can get really difficult. And Hillary, if you'd like to jump in, where especially with SSI folks, either, they get this meeting when they get their benefits, and they get all of their rules that, you're not supposed to travel outside the state for the country for 30 days. You're supposed to have this much income. You're, this many resources. They get all of the rules at that one meeting, and then Social Security just expect them to remember them. for the rest of their time when they're on benefits, and that's not necessarily the case. And then they, you know, get a bank account with their child, or there could be any sort of reason in terms of why they no longer meet the eligibility requirements for supplemental security income. And so, you know, at Benefits Law Center, we try to be very liberal in terms of the other pertinent circumstances that qualify for the waiver, and we try to be very forthcoming and try to apply for that request for waiver for folks or work for folks. The field offices, I wouldn't say are very liberal in terms of applying the pertinent circumstances. But there is opportunity to appeal in front of administrative law judge, which they, you know, it really depends on the judge. There could be ones that are a little bit more liberal depending on the full circumstances. Because the field offices are really going to say, could you have reported, should you have reported, and you didn't, and they're going to really just hang on that, where there is in the actual rule of law the concept of pertinent circumstances that the judge might be willing to review a little bit more. Hillary, I don't know if you'd like to add anything else.
Yeah,
Well-
I would just, oh, sorry, Allison.
I'm so sorry. Can we just ask you to be super brief, Hillary? This is a really important conversation, and we have some other things we need to get to. So maybe you could also say what your and your colleagues' availability is to problem solve.
Yeah. Yeah, why don't I just do that? I can put some stuff in the chat, but I will say you can reach out to Benefits Law Center. We do also do trainings. So if there is a training on a particular topic, like such as this, that you would like to see, let us know. We can work on it. And I will say you can refer clients to us. Our general number, I'll put it in the chat. We have an intake line. We do have a wait list because there's a lot of need and not many attorneys, but we can provide advice and counsel. This is something helping folks at least get the waiver, get it filed, get the withholding stopping, and then you can go from there. But I'll put some more information in the chat and just encourage you to keep persistent, don't give up. It kind of depends on who you get at the field office, but your clients have options.
Hillary and Maya, thank you so much. We have partnered with Benefits Law Center on many occasions to do full-blown trainings, and it seems like maybe this is an example of one where we will be, partnering with you again. But having this quick change of information that has such an enormous impact on people's lives, and having you come and give an overview is so helpful, and we appreciate you so much. Maya has been a partner of us in voting rights and voter registration work, and in her role at the Urban League before she passed the bar exam. And so, I mean, you guys are such wonderful, knowledgeable resources, and I want to just underscore they will be of assistance to you. We know most people on this call who are helping people around benefits issues are not attorneys. So you are not alone. There are these great attorneys at the Law Center who will assist you. And we'll probably work with them to do another training. So thank you both so much. Thanks to the whole crew at the Benefits Law Center. We deeply appreciate you. And we are moving on only because, there's a lot happening. And I guess the other thing I will just note is everyone is aware the Social Security Administration is under assault by the Trump administration. And the attacks on the field office workers and the policy changes are going to keep coming. So this is another area where advocacy is crucial, not only advocacy for the individuals whom you are supporting, sheltering, housing, and assisting, but advocacy for the service and the federal agency itself. So Social Security Works is a great organization, and I put that information in the chat. Hallie is going to take us through a time-sensitive and vitally important piece of advocacy that we're all going to do together this morning. Hallie.
Thank you. And before I do that, I might just invite everybody to take a deep breath because we do a lot in these meetings and there's a lot going on. And it's important to remember to breathe every once in a while. Yeah. So I'm going to talk a little bit about where we are with the rent stabilization bill. So this is a bill that I've talked a lot about in these meetings. You've probably heard a lot about it if you're on our email list. This is a bill that would limit how much landlords can raise rent at the end of a lease. And the good news is it made it further than it ever has before in the legislature. The bad news is that the Senate last week added some really bad amendments. So this bill is not in great shape at the moment. What the Senate did is they added 2 amendments. One that would change the amount that landlords can increase rent, or the cap, from 7%, where it was before, to 10% plus inflation. So in years of high inflation, that could be 15, 16, 17%. And that's way more than most tenants can do. The other thing that they did is they kicked out tenants who rent single family homes that aren't corporate owned from all of the protections in the bill. So that's a good chunk of renters across the state. And most of those folks are families. So that would completely exclude all of them from any of the rent protections that are in the bill. So that's really bad. And we're trying to get that fixed. So there is a process that they'll go through next called the conference committee process, where legislators have a chance to make additional changes to the bill. That will be getting started quite soon. So Danielle and I are going tomorrow to Olympia to talk with lawmakers and rally with our friends at the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance to try and get that fixed. If you're available tomorrow from 11 to 1, you can join us at the Capitol. There'll be a rally. We'll be pulling lawmakers off the floor. Again, this is organized by our friends at the Housing Alliance. So if I could have Jody drop that link in the chat, please. And regardless of whether you can make it tomorrow or not, we'll also drop a link to take action, to email your representatives and your senator to demand that they fix this bill this year. So please do take that action. This is like the moment to turn up the pressure on this issue. And with that, I'll pass it to Allison to talk about the budget.
Oh boy, I'm talking about the budget. I need to take several deep breaths. Thanks, Hallie. I'm going to try to be really brief here. This budget has the potential to bring more progressive revenue to help solve our upside down tax structure in Washington state than before, or it has the potential to balance a $14 billion and growing budget deficit on the backs of the 99% of working people in this state who pay more than our fair share in our state's taxes. I think you all understand Washington state used to be the most upside down tax code in all 50 states, and now we've moved up a level. So now there's one state that's less progressive than we are, less regressive, excuse me. So last time the state legislature had to deal with significant budget deficit was during the Great Recession in 2008, 2009. And at that point, they balanced the state budget on the backs of poor and working people, and we have not yet recovered from that. We cannot allow that to happen this year. So we have to speak up, not just for progressive revenue in general, although that is important, but for specific types of progressive revenue that ensure that the wealthiest individuals and corporations pay more like their fair share, and that the state legislature resists the enormous pressure that they are under from corporations like Amazon, like Microsoft, like Vulcan, who have hundreds of paid lobbyists who are walking the halls of Olympia every day, putting pressure on members of the House and Senate not to slightly tweak the tax code in our state. So in addition to taking the action that was dropped in the chat, which we encourage you to do, and taking every action, if you're on other groups' lists, like Balance Our Tax Code, like Poverty Action, like the Children's Alliance, pretty much all of us are sending you messages like this, and I suggest that you take all actions. Your lawmakers need to hear from you, and if you have friends who live in the south part of our state around Vancouver, who live in Eastern Washington, who live in rural parts of our state, those folks need to be contacting their lawmakers as well. This is an all hands on deck situation. We are 2 weeks away, less than 2 weeks away from the end of the legislative session, and the decisions about the budget are being made now. We know how extraordinarily terrible things are at the federal level, and it is all the more reason that we need our state lawmakers to stand strong. They have proposed progressive revenue, and we need them to continue through their budget cycle, their budgeting process, to embed progressive revenue into the budget. Many of you know that it's important to customize your emails, and we really do suggest that you do that. First sentence, subject line. But also, we encourage you to make some phone calls. So this is the great and wonderful Nancy Amadei, a dear friend and mentor to me, and somebody who's probably, without exaggeration, taught thousands of people that advocacy just means speaking up. I'm very, very sad to tell you that Nancy Amadei passed last week. And we are going to participate in celebrating her life and carrying her work on. And the best way that I know of to do that is to invite you to take out your cell phones right now. And we are not going to take the time to make the phone call right now because we have a really important message from a member and friend organization, WHEEL and the Women in Black, that we need to make time for before we end. But I really am serious. Please take out your cell phones now. These are the cardboard cell phones that we used to have Nancy throw out like Oprah during our in-person trainings, and open it up and create yourself a new contact called Olympia, State Legislative Hotline. Thank you, Jody. 1-800, you can come off mute if you know it, because Nancy used to make us memorize it. 1-800-562-6000. And here's the Nancy Amadei tip to end all tips. When you call that number, a real person will answer the phone. You don't have to remember what legislative district you're in. You just tell that person your name, your address. They look up who your lawmakers are, your 1 state senator, your 2 state representatives, and this is so important, throw in the governor for free. Ask the person answering the phone to send your message to your lawmakers and to the governor, because right now, Governor Bob Ferguson is one of the biggest barriers to progressive revenue. I can't believe that I have to say that, but it's true. So please commit that you will make this phone call in Nancy's honor, and on behalf of all the people who whose lives really will be changed for the worse if we don't do this, and for the better if we do. Call the legislative hotline. It is staffed Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., and you can call every day. Thanks for the script, Hallie. That's a really helpful thing. We'll be sharing that out with people afterwards. And I think in the interest of time and out of great respect for the wonderful Reverend Pat Simpson, a former member of the board of the coalition and an extraordinary leader in our community, I'm going to turn things over to you, Pat, for a really important history lesson and action update for the folks here today.
Well, Allison, thanks for the high expectations. And thanks for this moment to just give you some news. I don't think it's news to anybody actually here that The Mary's Place Day Center closed at the end of March, just about 3 weeks ago. And other day services for women, official and unofficial, including the library, Angelines, et cetera, are seeing an impact of crowding, more laundry, more showers, more meals, and it's urgent that a replacement program for the shelter gets launched, and Skitch has been part of that, along with Wheel and the Women's Shelter Roundtable. We failed to get funding earlier in the year and need to go back to the city for that, because this program will need new funding, a new place, and a new operator. But in the meantime, this happened at the Women's Shelter Roundtable, which is the first Monday of every month from 2 to 3:30 at Trinity Episcopal Church. A great bunch of folks from a lot of different sectors. And the idea popped up that we could just restart a tiny bit of history and do a small thing. The Church of Mary Magdalene, founded by Reverend Jean Kim, and I was the next pastor starting in 1998, was worship service with meals for homeless women on Saturdays. That started a little day center called Mary's Place, which grew big. And Mary's Place actually continued the day center as they refocused on family shelter and services over the years, along with that Saturday service. So both of those things ended in March. And a bunch of us old timers are restarting the Saturday service this Saturday, and we're going to keep it going as long as we can. Gethsemane Lutheran has been very generous to let us use the empty space where the shelter used to be for a while until we find a permanent location. So that's been great. Mary's Place has been very generous to leave us kitchen equipment and paper plates and coffee pots and some of the necessary things. So we are, with that generosity, going to pull something together. We'll see who shows up on Saturday. This whole thing was built around volunteer in-kind giving at the start, and we've already got 3 Saturdays of volunteer cooks signed up, and I think it's going to fly. So keep us in your prayers or thoughts or whatever it is you do. And I did put in the chat, I know you've reposted them, a flyer that has a backside with volunteer needs and a donation portal and a calendar where you can sign up to cook breakfast if you want to. And for those of you who are new to town, Mary's Place did a 25-year anniversary thing on their website, and it starts out with those very early days. So you can look back at something small that started something big, and here we go again. Thanks for your support always and your attention, and we're going to make the big thing happen too, together.
Thank you so much, Pat. Really appreciate all that work, the services y'all are providing, and that wealth of information of sort of where we started and how we're maybe coming back around full circle a little bit in some ways. In addition to registering for our May 15th annual membership meeting, I'm going to have one of my colleagues drop that link back into the chat again. This is going to be our ledge debrief. We're going to have a packed agenda as we always do, so you don't want to miss this 2-hour meeting. We are also helping to co-sponsor and promote a film called Beyond the Bridge. This is happening May 13th at Seattle Town Hall. This is a free event. We have a bit.ly to register for that event. I had the pleasure of seeing the very first screening at the Housing First conference last year. It's an incredible film. And I think you all might feel seen in the work that you do. And I think for people that are less connected to this work or have are beginning their understanding of root causes of homelessness, it's going to really provide some important information for folks. So I really encourage you to share this with your communities. Really incredible opportunity. On that note, we have learned over the years that people feel a little bit more comfortable sharing their community announcements when we turn off the recording. So at this point, I'm going to turn off the recording and invite anybody that has any information that they want to share about their programs or their events with us now. So if one of my colleagues could please turn off the recording.